Welcome to the Westside Investors Network, WIN, your community of investing knowledge for growth. This is the Real Estate Professionals Investing Podcast for real estate professionals by real estate professionals. This show is focused on the next step in your career, investing. Thank you for listening. And please, if you like our content, rate us on your podcast provider. Just a quick disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are for educational purposes only and should not be construed as an offer to buy or sell any shares or securities, make or consider any investments, or take any other action.
Welcome back to another episode of the Deal Deep Dive segment on the Westside Investors Network podcast. I'm your host, Trent Werner. In this segment, our featured guests will share their unique stories on a specific deal they've invested in. We will dive deep into finding the deal, financing the deal, writing an offer, and the due diligence. Do us a solid and smash that subscribe button, leave us a rating, and share this episode. And now, let's dive deep. Welcome back to the Westside Investors Network podcast. I'm your host, Trent Werner. On today's Deal Deep Dive episode, we're joined by Steven Andrews of SOARX Consulting. Steven's going to share about his 10-year career buying, rehabbing, refinancing properties, and he's accumulated over 100 properties to this point. Steven's also going to share about his new book, The New American Dream, as well as a $500,000 giveaway that his company is running. Now let's welcome Steven Andrews. All right, Steven Andrews joining the Westside Investors Network podcast today. Thanks so much, Steven, for joining us. And I cannot wait to talk about the new American dream, as you like to put it, and how you have used coaching, consulting, and real estate investing to help the lives of others. Steven, thanks for joining us.
Absolutely. So glad to be here.
So I want to get right into your first real estate deal. We will parlay this. You don't have to go into too much detail, but how did that first deal get you to, be a consultant, help other people start that process?
Absolutely. So my journey's a little bit different than everyone else's. So I was in, you never know, I believe there's people that want to get into real estate that are got a ton of debt, not making a lot of money either. So hopefully this resonates with someone. But I was young. I was in my upper 20s. This was a decade ago. I was $75,000 in debt. Most of that was student loan debt. I made a great wise decision as a 22-year-old to buy a brand new car. It's just such a great asset, right? So I had that as well. And I was only making $45,000 a year. So I didn't have a lot of money left over, at the end of the day. But luckily for me, I was able to link up with my mentor that's still my mentor to this day, named Joel. And he really helped lay a great foundation for me. And the first book I read, the first book I read was Building Wealth by Russell Whitney. And that's what I'm about to explain, what I've done hundreds of times. And so my strategy, it really from when I first started to now has really been the same. I bought the worst house on the block, right? So I didn't buy the best house because there's not as much upside as the best house. It's already the best house. It doesn't create that much value. You're paying someone else to do all the work for you, and you're paying a lot more for it. You can't get a great deal on the best house on the block. But for me, I bought the worst house on the block that had cosmetic issues. And so I'm not talking about structural issues where a foundation's caving in or the roof's caving in. I'm talking about a broken window, a hole in the wall, needs painting, maybe needs floors, a new light fixtures, very cosmetic stuff. And so my first deal, I didn't have any money, really, and I was telling my mentor at the time, he said, hey, that's okay. Just figure out a way to get your hands on a little bit of money. And so my first deal 10 years ago was 2 houses, $35,000 a piece. I needed 15% down. Not a lot of banks just allow you, or financial institutions allow just 15% down anymore. But for me, that was the reality. And so I had a credit card that you could take a cash advance off the credit card. And that's exactly what I did. Now, don't get me wrong, the credit card was only 7% interest, a little bit different than today, right? But I took money off that credit card. Even then, people said, you're absolutely nuts for using a credit card to pay for a down payment. I said, well, call me nuts if you want to. I'm betting on myself here. And took the money off. That was my down payment for my first couple of properties there. And then what I did, I went in and I fixed them up. So the value was at X, and once it's fixed up, it was at Y and much higher. And I was able to refinance that property, take it back to the bank, refinance it, pull all my working capital back out. I'm still not 100% loan to value. I'm still probably about 70 because that's how much the value went up. Because there again, appraisers can't look past, broken windows and holes in the wall and needs floors and that sort of thing. So they value it accordingly. And it didn't cost that much to fix the stuff up, but the value was raised so much. And so I had pennies on the dollar in the property once I fixed up, refinanced and pulled that money back out, paid the credit card off, rolled the money into the next property. So don't go buy a nice sports car. Don't do what I did when I was 22 and bought a brand new car. It's a terrible investment. Don't do that. Roll it into the next property that's going to make you more money. And that's what I have done hundreds of times, one after another after another. And that was really outlined in the book that I read by Russell Whitney, Building Wealth. I mean, it just outlines how he did it. And the book's based in the 90s. It was redone in the 2000s, but it's still good to this day, because a lot of people can do that. If you can look past the small things within a house and the bolts and the structure is still good, hey, to be honest with you, I hope it has holes in the wall. I hope there's some broken windows because I'm gonna get a better deal that way, and I can fix that stuff up a lot cheaper than if I would have bought the best house on the block. Just say if I would have bought the house and somebody would have done what I did to it, you're not paying pennies on the dollar anymore. You just paid that person a lot of money to fix that up when you could have done that and you would have had less money tied up in it. And so that's really how I've done this whole business hundreds of times. And it's such a great thing to be able to do.
So I don't know if you're familiar with Bigger Pockets. I'm sure you've heard of them, but the phrase that they coined basically, which I mean, it is this principle that's been around for way longer than they've been alive, is the Burr method. Buy, rehab, rent out, refinance, repeat. And you did exactly that from a different strategy, but it's all the same principle. So once you found the Burr strategy or this fix up refinance strategy, whatever you want to call it, you said you rolled that into the next property. At what point did you either A, stop rolling into the next property, or feel comfortable enough to then go share your knowledge and teach people how to do the same thing?
Absolutely. So I've always done it. There have been times where I've, at some point, I still refinanced and pulled some money back out. I might not have pulled as much back out. Once you start accumulating some of this money, you don't need it as much. Right. But I've always tried to have a good nest egg for saving for a rainy day, because there again, a couple of years ago when this country shut down for a couple of years, nobody in their right mind would have ever thought that would have happened, right? So, you have to save for a rainy day. But during that I started to decide, during COVID, like all I had was rental property. And so to be honest with you, I was, I guess, 8 years in this business and at the time, and I was scared half to death. I was scared like I was when I first got in the business. Like, what? The government's told me I can't evict people for non-payment of rent. And my goodness, like, what if my tenants don't pay? I'm screwed. Luckily, I have great tenants in that they did what they were supposed to do. And the ones that struggled, we got them help and we were fine. But I started thinking about something my parents told me a long time ago: don't have all your eggs in one basket. And so I started to flip houses. I started lending some money as well. And then I started thinking about how can I give back, right? I'm at a point where I have hundreds of rental units, 7 figures a year. Like I've had a ton of success, and you know what? I wouldn't be where I'm at today if it wasn't for other people helping me. And that's really where the book, The New American Dream, A Simple Roadmap to Purchase an Investment Properties, how it was even formed. I had several different realtors and new investors say, you know what? There's not a ton out there for doing what you're doing locally. Like, people want to know what you know, like, can you put pen to paper kind of thing? And that's kind of how the book was formed. And then I took it a step further with SOARX Consulting and being able to help people. And it's an extension of the book. We just go more in depth. I have a real estate course you can take that teaches you exactly how I've done it over the last 10 years. And it takes about 3 hours to go through it. And it's a bunch of different downloadables and spreadsheets and worksheets that you can use that I've used. And then, I've had this crazy dream over the last several months that we're actually doing a giveaway where we're going to give one lucky winner a chance at winning $500,000 to go into buying real estate. And so SOARX has launched that. You can find all that stuff on SOARXconsulting.com. The giveaway, you just click giveaway and it's there. You can buy the book there. You can buy the course there. There's some apparel and stuff like that you can buy. For every dollar you spend, a dollar entry into the giveaway. And so it's just something fun, right? Where, real estate sometimes is so serious and people get uptight about it at times. And I want to be able to give back, but I also want to have fun doing it. Been in a position to be able to do that and really looking forward to what this materializes in over the next several months, because we're also giving away $1,000 every month starting in June through the end of the year to the ultimate kind of giveaway at the very end. And we hope this changes someone's life. And the reason why I did it was I didn't have a ton of money when I got into this business. Everything's at an all-time high, right? Interest rates are high. And so let me help somebody out, and so really looking forward to that.
And now here's a word from our sponsor.
Get things done while you're on the move. Learn more about working with a virtual assistant through Offsite Professionals. It's a great way to get all the things done that you need to get done. Have freedom in your time and streamline your life by automating your business. Stop spending time on the tasks that you can delegate and start spending more time on your superpower. Call us today at 503-446-3177 or visit our website at offsiteprofessionals.com.
Uptown Syndication is now offering a syndication coaching program for you to take your real estate portfolio to the next level. This is your opportunity to have experienced syndicators, AJ and Chris Shepard, coach you on your way to controlling your real estate investing future. Our coaching program will provide you with the tools and framework needed to begin syndicating real estate in your target market. Go to uptownsyndication.com today to learn more. So now I have a question, because you said, a lot of people were talking to you about getting pen on paper for the new American dream, sharing your stories and your knowledge. You said your local market. What is your local market? And I have a follow-up question to this.
Absolutely. I'm centrally located in North Carolina, the Piedmont Triad of North Carolina, kind of in between Raleigh and Charlotte, kind of Greensboro area. And really this book is about people that want to buy single family homes, duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, fiveplexes, small little apartment complexes that you can do this method in, is really kind of my local market. And the thing is, the great thing about this business is, when you start certain businesses, you think so small, right? But this has become a national thing. I mean, my book has been bought internationally. It's been bought all over this country. It's not very local anymore, right? I'm helping people in other areas of the country and the world that I never thought, I'd be helping anybody in.
So my follow-up question, and you may get this, before, is I'm in Portland, Oregon. So, high priced market relative to what we have going on here. And a lot of people will hear this strategy, and I've used the same strategy as you. I know that it works, and I know that is doable in our market. And I'm assuming in your guys' market, because North Carolina has been going ballistic the last 10 years. Things are starting to be, it's harder to find a deal that fits this. So what would you say to someone that says, Steven, I get the strategy, I understand it, but I can't find a deal in my market to deploy that strategy?
Be open, right? So I'm situated in between Raleigh and Charlotte, and everything's kind of migrating to where I'm at. But there are still markets within 30, 45 minutes of me that I can still get prices from 10 years ago. And so every state has those markets. You have to be open to going to those markets. Some people don't even know about those markets. I was telling a realtor a year ago about a market, and maybe I shouldn't have told anybody because I was just gobbling everything up. Nobody knew about the market. And I told this one person, now everybody knows, and everybody's going there and buying stuff now. But so it's starting to creep up, right? Supply and demand. But there are markets that you can go in and still get good deals. So for instance, you're right, North Carolina's just blowing up, but there's two big areas currently in North Carolina: Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, Cary, Apex area, Durham, those are really elevated, right? So don't try to buy anything there, right? Go into a market that might be on the outskirts of those markets or might be an hour from there, and then start clustering properties together, because I've always been one to cluster properties together. So you can get to any of my properties if you're in the middle of the county in which I own a property, and you can get to any of them within 20, 30 minutes. Because I wanted to be able to cluster them together in case I had to go, or if I had maintenance to go or whatnot. I don't want somebody to have to travel an hour and a half just to do one thing. Like I didn't want to do that. And so you got to be open about it. Like I think if you have a market set in stone, you know what, if I was in North Carolina and you know what, I only want to own rental property in Raleigh, it's going to be really, really tough for me to break into that market. If I didn't have a ton of money, if I wasn't already in the business. But there are markets on the outskirts of that some people that invest in Raleigh, like, you know what, I'm better than these markets. I'm not going to those markets. I'm only going to stay in Raleigh. And so if you're flexible, you can still find good deals, but you really have to look. They're not going to be as noticeable. You really have to kind of get down to the basics. I still remember when I first got in this business, I would ride around neighborhoods and find the worst house on the block that might be boarded up and find out who owns it, calls them. And you can still do some of that in some of these neighborhoods that people hadn't got to yet. But you have to be a little bit more creative today on how you do that.
Yeah, and I guess the reason that I brought that question up and wanted to ask your opinion on it is because even if you can find a deal that, in our area, they're out there, you can find a deal that you can fix up and add value to. But when it comes to refinancing and renting and cash flowing, that's, almost non-existent here because of, one, the current lending market, and two, the prices being so much higher and rents aren't really going up with it. So I liked what you said about be open to the markets on the outskirts of town or just outside of the main hubs where these deals are still out there. And my other question for you is, have you ever thought about deploying this strategy in another state where you'd have to drive multiple hours to get to, or are you strictly focused in your guys' local market?
For me, I've been more local just because I own a rental management company that manages it. I don't utilize other management companies to manage anything. And I've had a great success doing that. But I would say if you're going to be a couple hours away, make sure you have a great rental management company in place, or that you have vetted, that's going to treat the property like it's your own. There's a lot of rental management companies out there that don't treat it like their own, right? And I really want people that work for me to treat it like it's their own, because I know I'm going to get a better service than what I could do elsewhere. I'll say this much about different markets that are very hard. For instance, maybe yours, where you're right, interest rates are high, property value is high, maybe the rent doesn't fully cover what you need, or maybe it barely covers it and you're not really making a ton of money. And this is where I started to really diverse, what I do. I have a separate part of my company now that all it does is flip houses. And so you can also be creative where, they're again being flexible of like, you know what, I really want to own rental property. I don't necessarily want to flip, but you know what, maybe I have to flip a few houses to be able to own rental property. Maybe you have to do it in reverse order, because most people get in and they buy rental property and then they flip. Maybe you have to do it the opposite way, of like, you know what, I'm going to buy this property, fix it up, I'm going to flip it, I'm going to put that money aside, I'm going to get enough money up where, you know what, either one, I don't have to get as big of a loan, or two, I'm just going to pay cash for the property. And then now it does cash flow. And so, sometimes you just got to think outside the box there, right? And I've thought more about that now, especially with interest rates, what they are and what properties are costing nowadays, of what I decide to keep compared to what I decide to actually flip and sell.
I love how you just brought that up, because that's something that we've run into. Our partnership group here is, we find a good deal that would make sense to refinance and hold it if the numbers worked out, but the numbers aren't working. And so we've ended up flipping, 10 or 12 properties in the last couple of years, because we know they're good deals and we know we can increase the value, but it didn't make sense. So we were able to just stash that capital away and go deploy it into other investments. And I literally found out right before this call that my wife and I just got an off-market deal wrapped up, and the seller's willing to carry the financing on it. So this is one where, we're going to rent it out for a year or two and then flip it, when rates are calmed down a little bit. And that's a new strategy that it's going to be the first time we're trying it, but hey, we'll see what happens.
That's right. And that's the great thing about real estate, right? The principles of real estate all stays the same, right? But how you do real estate, you can have 100 people in a room and people are going to do it 100 different ways, right? I think real estate is just such a great tool and a great wealth builder that you can do it so many different ways and everybody be successful at it. I tell people real estate's the only thing on this earth where you can use someone else's money, someone else pays your mortgage, you make a little bit of money every month, and you make money over time because it's going to appreciate over time. And there's nothing else that allows you to do that. The only thing you can compare it to is the stock market, but you physically got to have the money to put in the stock market where rentals and real estate, you don't have to have any of your own money. And so it's just one of those things where I think to be successful in the market we're currently in, you just have to be flexible, right? It's not going to look like somebody, my mentor's been in this business 30 years and he said, you know what? I just bought houses and I held on to them for the last 30 plus years. And I didn't do a ton of flips. And he started doing a little bit of flips, over the last 5-10 years, just because the market started to change a little bit. But real estate doesn't look the same as what it did 30 years ago. The principles are there, but you have to be a little bit more creative now. And to your point, if you can find some creative finance and seller financing, another thing people might want to start looking at, I think there's going to be a huge movement in this country over the next probably 10 years where there's going to be a ton of real estate transferred from people that are in their 70s and 80s to people that are much younger. And so one thing that I have seen, because I've actually gotten a few deals where I've ran into somebody that was in their 80s and they didn't want to get killed with taxes. And so they're like, you know what? Seller finance, I don't even want a ton of money down because I don't want to get killed with taxes. I just want that monthly income coming in every month. And you're able to still get a decent return by still being able to be creative like that.
Exactly. So, Stephen, we've talked about your strategy and how you've had to be flexible and adjust that over the last handful of years. We've talked about your book. We've talked about the giveaway. One thing that we haven't talked a whole lot about is SOARX and your consulting side. Just tell me a little bit about how, if someone comes to you and says, Stephen, I need some help, what does that look like for someone?
Absolutely. So SOARX is completely personalized, right? So everybody's in a different place in their real estate journey. It's not a one size fits all. Certainly we have the real estate course that we put people through because it's the basics and it's everything I've learned over the last, 10 years. So maybe some of that stuff. It's a refresher for you. Maybe you learn something new, but it's really personalized. What do you need help with? Do you need help trying to find good deals? Do you need help with trying to figure out maintenance? Do you need help with the rental process? I mean, there's just so many different things we can help with, and it's all personalized on how you want to take care of that. And so we put together a personal plan and we walk hand in hand with you and giving advice. And I tell people, we don't just accept anybody because I want someone that's going to be a student of the trade of real estate. If you think you know everything, I'm not your guy, right? Because I don't know everything. I've been doing this business for a decade. So let's not even butt heads with how this is going to go. But, as long as everybody's open, I love helping people. I love that aspect of being able to give back. And it's just been so much fun. I mean, it really has been.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing your strategy, your process, and your career timeline that you've gone through. I will definitely make sure that the giveaway is linked in the show notes for everyone to go enter that and check out the New American Dream. Where can people connect more with you and hear more from you, Stephen?
Absolutely. So you can go to the website, SOARXconsulting.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram. Facebook is at SOARX Consulting. And then Instagram is SOARX_consulting. You can find us there. And there's some ways on the website that, you can send us an email and we can connect that way as well.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Stephen. I appreciate you joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Real Estate Professionals Investing Podcast on WIN, your community of investing knowledge for growth. We hope that this episode has increased your knowledge and added value to your path to freedom. If you would, please take a second to rate us so that we can get more great investors to interview. If you or someone that you know wants to be on, please visit westsideinvestors.com and fill out our form to be on the show. Thank you again and enjoy your day.